All right. Hey, I'm going to tell you a few things that you need to make sure that you do with your camera. All right. You should all know at this point in the semester that the side of the camera is where this SD card goes. So we're going to put this SD card in the camera. And up here is where you turn it to on. So that's that little on button. I like to move, this moves all around. I like to move it so that I can just see everything on the back of the camera. All right, I'm going to talk you through the settings on your camera. We've turned it on, but we really want to turn it all the way up here towards the video mode. Now we're going to be able to see what the camera is looking at in front of the camera. First things first, we put in our SD card. We want to go to the menu, and we're going to toggle through with these buttons all the way until you get to this. We want to format the card. So I'm going to press set, and I'm going to go over to OK, and I'm going to format the card. Formatting the card deletes everything on the card, so you want to make sure that it is saved somewhere else. You want to make sure that all of that footage is saved either on your hard drive or on a desktop, something that you have access to. And if you're having trouble with an SD card, sometimes formatting the card will help. So up here is the menu. We're going to press menu, and we are going to go over. Here is where you're going to set the recording size. So this is where you're going to make a decision what to shoot in. I recommend that you shoot full HD 29.97 frames per second, okay? But you can also choose this one if you'd like to shoot 24 frames per second. But if you choose this one, you're going to select it with the little menu button over here. So I was toggling around. If you want to go into it, you press set. You can toggle around, and then when you get to the one you want, you press set again, and it selects it. So once you make a decision, it's also touchscreen. Once you make a decision about your frame rate, your shutter speed, so I'm gonna just press this at the front of the camera where this is what we shoot. It takes you back to the front. I need to make sure that my shutter speed is twice my frame rate. So my frame rate was 29. I need to make sure that my shutter speed is going to be 60. Okay, so these two things can change. If I want it to be brighter, I can move that. Whoop. And now it's a little bit brighter. If I want to change my ISO, lower is darker, higher is brighter, right? So 32 was about right. Okay, but your shutter speed has to be twice whatever your frame rate is. All of the settings on one of your cameras should match all of the settings on your second camera. So if they're right next to each other, pretty much you should be at the same ISO on both cameras, the same shutter speed on both cameras, because you have the same frame rate on both cameras. And then that will allow your aperture or your f-stop to be the same on both cameras. So you just want to make sure that the settings are pretty similar, if not exactly the same, so that the color looks the same when you import it into Premiere on both cameras. Another setting that's helpful to look at is this one called white balance. If I press white balance when I'm in the video mode over here, so I'm in the video mode, if I press white balance, nothing happens. You need to change this to the camera setting. So all of a sudden now we have this menu and I'm looking through the front of the camera by using that. Now when I go to white balance, I'm going to press white balance. This is going to come up. I can make a decision and move through these. This will keep it consistent. So if I'm by a window, I'll probably choose daylight. I might choose cloudy, depending on the lighting situation. If you're in like what we have in our classrooms is probably white fluorescent light. But just go through and then you can see if it makes the color when you go back here, if it makes it really blue or really gold. But automatic white balance is tricky particularly on a cloudy day, because sometimes if you're sitting someone by a window and a cloud goes by, it'll entirely change your white balance. And that is a much higher level color grading skill than we're going to be able to look at in this class. The last major thing I want to show you has to do with focusing. On your camera, this is the zoom. So this zooms in and zooms out. And this little ring right here allows you to focus. It puts things in focus and out of focus. So if you want to do something called a rack focus, where your shot starts out of focus and then comes into focus, that is where you will use that. That's where you'll use your rack focus. The other thing I like to use is on the side of my camera, there is an AF and an MF. When I set up a shot, I sometimes will put it on AF and I'll use, you can see it's moving. It's trying to focus. It's really confused as to what to focus on. So I will put it on that and I will press the shutter of the camera. And then once it's focused and I'm looking at the back of it, I will change that. So I'll focus it and then I'll move it back to manual focus. And that way I can move it all around and it's not gonna shake anymore. So if I'm having trouble focusing, I will go in between the autofocus and the manual focus. That's really helpful. You wanna keep it on manual focus instead of autofocus because when someone's moving, it'll be really noisy. The camera will go trying to adjust to make sure that they stay in focus. Instead, put it on manual focus and decide to change your depth of field if someone's moving a lot. Your depth of field is your aperture, which is that second number on the bottom of the camera other than your shutter speed. So you can make your depth of field a little bit wider.